What's going on, Jeromes? Beautiful Saturday, birds are chirping and stuff, and it's time for a Vikings Q&A session. So we'll often put out in the community tab call-outs for questions and answers, and we'll do up a few videos. That's what we're doing, man. It's a good time. So we got 5 good ones today. First one is from Evans. Hi, Andy. Long-time listener. Thank you. First-time caller. My question is, are you ready to talk about something other than nonsense draft fake news? I can't wait for the draft to be done, and then we can talk about something other than mock drafts or ridiculous trades that the national media driven haircuts predict. Love the content. Keep up the great work. Skull production value. Well, this is an absolute BS time of year, and I feel like we've done an okay job sort of filtering things out to a degree, because it seems like every single day you see sources say that the Vikings want to do this, and then the Giants want to do this, and the Broncos, and blah, 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 and they're in on this, and then they're in on that. So I feel like sometimes we run with things that seem credible, but of course this time of year, who knows what's credible, right? Like even the most diehard, the most hardcore NFL insiders, they get fed BS, right? So basically, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see, sort of time of year. But this is kind of fun because I mean, all of it is rumor and innuendo and speculation, and we as fans, we're always obsessed with what could be, right? In a couple weeks we'll finally have the draft and everything will be good to go. But I wish that. I would do this, except I'm way too lazy. Having a full-on just like chart of what happened, like all the rumors, see what checks out, see who Will Levis is this year, all this stuff. But I feel like if it's sort of like watching pro wrestling, where if you know that it's not fake. I mean, obviously, look at some of those guys, your bodies at the end of their careers, but predetermined and scripted. As long as you know that, you can get a lot of entertainment out of it. So there you go. By the way, I feel like if you put jelly beans down on a pro wrestling match, kind of got some issues. Who knows? Next up, number 2, Jay Jettas. Who will be this year's Ivan Pace? John Randall, a UDFA who shows out and becomes a star. So John Randall, obviously the OG, undersized defensive tackle, UDFA from Texas A&I Kingsville, 6-footers for life. Getting after things, as well as Ivan Pace Jr., who I think Ivan Pace Jr. is just scratching that surface of how good he's going to be. He's going to be a true blue superstar for the Vikings, hopefully for a long time. But, all right, so 2 guys are projected. I don't know if they'll go UDFA. Yeah, as always, it only takes one team, but guys are projected to go late-ish on day 3. So first up is Miles Cole, who's a guy that I like from Texas A&M. He has like a 7'3" wingspan. So he's like a friggin' condor out there. But he's 6'6", also put on some good weight, 278. Was originally at Louisiana Monroe, then transferred into Lubbock for 2 seasons. 3.5 sacks, 9.96 RAS. Now, it's tools, right? He has all the physical tools and capability, but you have to balance that out with age, since he had his COVID years, so he's like the Van Wilder playing 6 years in college, as well as overall production. Now, like I said, all it takes is one team, and hell, I mean, Cole could go in the 4th round, right? Or he could be undrafted. It's one of those situations. But I feel like it's sort of like an Andre Carter II situation, where you look at Carter, where he went into 2 football seasons ago, seen as a potential late first-round pick, and then, all right, so day 2, and then, all right, early day 3, and then all of a sudden he went undrafted because all 32 teams decided to go to a different direction. But now, I think the Vikings, he needs to change his body type from Army cadet to NFL player, and the Vikings are giving him time, which is good. I think it could be the same with Cole in terms of potential. And then you have Jaden Crumedy. So he's a guy that I like. And like I said, I mean, he could go 5th round. He could be undrafted. But 6'4", 301, a 4-year starter for the Bulldogs. He's from Hattiesburg. So he probably grew up just like, hey, Brett Favre, he's fantastic. But 123 career tackles, 8.5 career sacks, and he's a defensive lineman. Like, he's not in the mold of John Randall. Like, he's not a pressure merchant, but he's a tough physical defender. He's very solid against the run, and I think that he will develop as a pass rusher. He's got that power from the inside, and again, every single every single super stud defensive lineman for Mississippi State is always going to be compared to Chris Jones. I don't think that he's going to be a Chris Jones, but could he be a very strong 3-down player in this league somewhere eventually? Yes, I think he could be that. Next up, Road Warrior opinions. RODE, like a microphone. Opinions on if Vikings drafted Duke offensive lineman Graham Barton in the first round and Penix with the other first rounder. I would cream in my jeans. That would be a dream, ideal first round for me. And then ideally at the top of the day 3, getting yourself a defensive lineman. Now, ironically, if the Vikings got Dwayne Carter at the top of day 3, who, Graham Barton, former teammate, probably practiced against every single day, and then checking all those boxes in terms of both of the trenches as well as quarterback of the future. So my love for Penix is well documented, and it always goes back to all these guys are gambles, but if everything goes right, I do think that Penix has some of the highest upside of any of the quarterbacks in this draft, including Caleb Williams, including Drake May, including Jaden Daniels. All right, and with Graham Barton, the more I dig into the interior offensive line, the more I do love Graham Barton, the more I do love Zach Frazier. I think Graham Barton's going to come in and be a true blue Pro Bowl, all-pro type guy for 10, 12 years. And he's a little bit of an inverse Elton Jenkins. So Elton Jenkins was a 2-year starter and stud at Mississippi State at center, and then he went to the greasy grimy Green Bay Packers and played all over the place, both guard spots, right tackle, etc. Where Barton, he was a 3-year starter left tackle for Duke, but he's going to kick inside at either guard and ideally center and be just a massive stud there, because you love the leadership, you love the high football IQ, you love the movement skills, you love the ass, you love the attitude. So Graham Barton's going to be a stud. I really do like him a lot. So then you'd have your center of the future, or a guy that could come in and win one of the guard spots and then take over at center after a year after Bradbury is gone. And then Penix. Penix could sit for a year behind Darnold, or Penix could win the job outright. I really know. Next up, R. Free. Do you think all the early Vikings and J.J. McCarthy smokescreen was intentional to try and push May down to the 4th quarterback? Normally, teams as quarterback needy don't tip their hands so much before the draft. I think there could be an element of that, or I think that it's so the Vikings have been tied with every single quarterback, right? Whether it's Daniels, whether it's May, whether it's McCarthy, whether it's Penix, whether it's because also I feel like the Penix visit is a little bit of, hey, we know exactly what we showed you, where so teams can have private workouts with recruits and have it not leak out, right? Absent media tracking private planes and all that stuff. And also, if you do that, you can take a different private plane. It's crazy. But the Vikings rent, flashing lights. We visited Michael Penix. The entire staff went out. Let's put that out to the media, to Jordan Schultz. All right. So it's all a part of the game. And the Vikings could be going about this like, hey, let's just show everything. All right. So that's what you like in coaches, like show them too little or show them too much, because either way, if too little, not much for your opponent to go off of. If you show them everything, too much for your opponent to go off of, right? It's hard to eat an elephant one bite at a time. And for the Vikings, so obviously everyone knows that the Vikings are not quarterback, but I do like that they've been basically tied for every single one, and I think that they do like that effective smokescreen. But with McCarthy, so a lot of people have compared, well, is McCarthy's hype a lot like Will Levis last year? No, I don't think so, because Levis was clearly like media driven because they wanted another quarterback in that derby, right? And with McCarthy, I think the interest from the Broncos is legit. Obviously, take everything Harbaugh says about McCarthy, just throw it out the window. Get out of there. But obviously he's biased. But Antonio Pierce talking highly about McCarthy, and other teams rumored to be in with McCarthy. Look at the Giants. Look at whatever. So I think that the interest is legit, and I do think that McCarthy will be going top 6 and will be amongst the big 4 quarterbacks. And I think the Vikings' interest is legit, because in terms of someone to just operate the offense and just set it and forget it, I mean, J.J. McCarthy is your guy. Like, if you want a good little Boy Scout schoolboy who's not going to paint outside the lines and is just going to do exactly what you say and have good fundamentals doing it, I mean, McCarthy is your guy. But I don't know, man. If you want someone like the comparisons to McCarthy to Brock Purdy plus, like they're not bad. They're not bad, and I think are fairly accurate because I don't think that J.J. McCarthy is going to be that guy eventually that is just going to freelance and take over like a Mahomes, like a Caleb Williams, like a Josh Allen, right? I think that he will be a Brock Purdy plus. I think that he will be, for lack of a comparison, Kirk Cousins, where a guy who operates inside the framework of the offense can do good things for you and then go from there, right? And it's not necessarily a demerit against them, but could the Vikings be all that hype and they be okay because secretly they want Drake May a little bit more because Josh McCown has those ties and they met with Drake May and they vibe with him and they want the guy that has the upside even though he's going to need some work on his footwork? Yes, it's also possible. Lastly, Russ Mullins, Andy, there are a lot of potential. There are a lot of potential in this draft. Who do you think is a slam dunk? Also, who do you think will be the biggest bust? Also, you do. So I think the biggest bust candidate is, of course, Caleb Williams. And it's not because of him per se, but because of, heavy is the head that wears a crown. I mean, the number one pick is always under the biggest pressure and the largest microscope. And with Chicago, I know that Chicago is getting weapons. I know they have number 9 overall as well. I know that they're trying to build something there. But as you saw USC last year, they were very talent deficient, especially on defense, especially on offensive line. And Williams had to play hero ball to a large degree. Like he basically had to go out there and try and put up 5 touchdowns. Otherwise, USC wasn't going to have a chance last year. And with Chicago, I mean, Chicago is a place where quarterbacks go to cease to be, right? And what does history have to do with this year? I don't know. I just feel like it can be an organizational mentality. And I do worry about Caleb Williams. And it's just like Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields coming out of college. I love Caleb Williams coming out of college. I don't know if he's going to sign a second contract. I don't know. But we'll welcome him in as Drake May's backup in a couple years. There you go. But in terms of slam dunk, so I feel like safe players, I mean, there's a couple of safe players that, depending on where they land, obviously everyone is dependent on where they land, but guys that I will wager will have a very good career. Dallas Turner is out there. I just think that, yes, you're betting on the come a little bit, but in terms of potential, in terms of age, in terms of measurables, I think that Turner will be fine no matter where he lands. Johnny Newton. So Johnny Newton is just going to go wherever he needs to go, and he's just going to be fantastic. Like he's going to have a Geno Atkins long career and be fine. Joe Walt, the pride of Totino Grace, local kid. He's a slightly less physically imposing Jonathan Ogden, but the footwork is super clean. He doesn't panic. He's just rock solid as a left tackle. I think that he'll be fine. J.C. Latham from Alabama, the right tackle. I think that he's just going to be a road grader out there. I think that he's going to have a long career. Graham Barton, we talked about. Tyler Nubin from the Gophers. I feel like that he's a little bit underlooked, or overlooked rather. Underlooked too. But in terms of him being a stud safety, I think it's just because safety in general is seen as a sort of whatever position. It's less valued. It's sort of like tight end. It's sort of like running back nowadays. It's sort of like off-ball linebacker as until lately. But I think Tyler Nubin's going to be great. I think Ladd McConkey is going to be really good no matter where he goes. Now, yes, you could say Harrison and Neighbors and BTJ and Adunze as well, but I just feel like McConkey, maybe even like Ricky Pearsall, like no matter where they land, they're not going to be the wide receiver 1, and they're going to be wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 2, no matter where they go. And I feel like they're going to be super productive in those respective roles. And also other guys I think it could bust. Any quarterback that goes to Washington or New England has to start right away, because the worst possible scenario for Drake May is going to Washington or New England and having to start right away, because both those teams are very talent deficient, and he needs someplace where he can be incubated and marinate for a hot second, work on his fundamentals, and just get up to speed of being a pro, because he does have some bad footwork at times, and like Caleb Williams, like he tried to play too much hero ball last year when he didn't have the talent around him. And both those places are very talent deficient at the moment. And it could be a spot too where he gets shelled, where he's getting hit, he's getting pressured, and bad habits become cemented, like bad footwork, seeing ghosts in the pocket, everything like that, and he could be ruined. And that applies the same thing with Jaden Daniels. The same thing applies with J.J. McCarthy. Like I do worry about whatever quarterback goes to Washington or New England. Now, it could be a spot, too, where they can sit behind Mariota in Washington and Jabroni Brisket in New England, but I think that's going to be unlikely. Yeah, but we'll see. Anyways, that's it. That's Q&A on this beautiful Thursday. That beautiful Saturday. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skull Production Value.